Hello, everybody. Welcome to GVO After Dark. I'm GoVR Go Home, and tonight we're going to talk about a couple of different things we're going to share with you guys. I've got a couple of guys that are going to be joining me up here live, and we're going to say hi to everybody that has shown up so far. And let's see here. So we got Mark from M&M Rails, James, Dundas Junction Model Railroad. How's it going? Wigwag, and Kevin. How's it going, Kevin? Fred. How's it going, Fred? Dwight Curley, the Curley Express. And we've got Mr. Brian Ferguson. How's it going, Brian? And Bernard from Mini Prince. How's it going? Bub031 in the Bougie de Bojo. And we've got Anthony and Mike Co-Trains and Tim from They Make It Like That, and Ronald. How's it going? Hopefully everyone's doing well. As you can see, it's not 8:30. My son's soccer game was canceled because of the weather due to the smoke that's happening. So they canceled it. So then I just redid all the times. So we had keeping track at about 7:15 there is when it started. And of course, it's 8 o'clock. We're just thereafter. So we're doing keeping track. Now, we have this little thing that we do every single month where every Thursday, we call it Third Rail Thursday. One of us goes live. We do a live, and there's a whole team of us. Typically, it would either be Dave or Tim, and they usually cover the first week. Second week is me. Third week is normally Mark, and the last Thursday of the month is GVO After Dark and keeping track. So if you're ever looking for something to watch Thursday nights, usually at 8 o'clock, you'll be able to catch any of these guys doing a live at that time. Mom and Son Train, how's it going? And we're going to bring up our co-host because I can't do this alone. You see him with his big smile sitting in the back room there.
Hey!
How's it going, Mark?
Very well. You?
I'm good, thanks. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. So good to be here.
We're going to talk about trains today, and we're going to talk about layouts. I know that you've built yourself a couple of layouts, several.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to share our experiences and talk about a couple of points with building a layout. So, because there's a lot of people right now in the community that are starting to build a layout, are in the middle of building a layout, might be thinking about doing a layout. So hopefully this will help. It'll help to narrow in on what everybody needs to do and wants to do, and what they maybe don't know they need to do. So we'll touch on all that tonight. Now there's a third. We do have a third. This might be a little weird because this doesn't happen too often. You probably know this guy. It's been a minute, but can we welcome back Dave Co?
Yeah. It's good to be back. It's good to be back. Not back permanently, temporary, but it's good to be back. Thanks for having me, guys. Chris, I just want to say, I'd appreciate a shout out because I had to burn my hamburgers on a barbecue and blow it over the soccer field for them to cancel your son's soccer to get this live at 8 p.m. instead of 8:30. I still ate the burgers. They were pretty crispy. But, taking one for the team. You know what I mean? I'm a team player. Don't forget that.
I appreciate you coming out tonight. I know you turned back into a pumpkin at midnight, so I'm sure we'll have you back before then. But, I really appreciate you. And it's good to see you back, even if it is just for one night. But you did a Third Rail Thursday this month because...
I did. This is a double dipper month for me. Yeah. The most YouTube seen of me in like a year and a half. Those poor people. I'm so sorry. I just want to sincerely apologize to everybody in chat.
It's ironic everyone's trying to think you're a bear because this is, we haven't seen you since before you came out of hibernation. So this is good. This is good.
It's true. It's true. In classic bear fashion, I'm a little hairier, a little fatter, less grumpy.
Do you still enjoy bacon? Is bacon still a thing?
I can't believe you just asked me that. Like, I'm almost insulted. Like, how could you even think for just a sec? Like, come on.
Bear Co. Oh, the worst. All right, well, this is what we do. So normally I'll give the rundown of what we can expect tonight. That way everybody watching knows what's going to happen. We've got a mini of the month from Mini Prints. So I'll do a live unboxing, even though it's not a box, it's an envelope. We're going to do our live streamer schedules for next month. Keeping track rewind. It's helpful for those who might have missed keeping track that just aired just before GVO After Dark. And we're going to do a month in review. It's been a busy month for all of us. Actually, this is probably the most I've seen you guys in a while, right? So that's kind of crazy. But yeah, this is episode 6 of season 5. 5 seasons, guys. Wow. Okay, well, this is the longest relationship I've had besides my marriage. Jeez. So, are you tweeting right now? Are you really tweeting this? He doesn't know we can't hear him.
I forgot I was muted. I saw Mark mute, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I should mute too."
My dog's going wild, so I muted myself.
I was gonna post it on YouTube because I don't have Twitter.
That's fair. Okay, so we'll do the streamer schedules first. So for next month, it's a regular month. So the first Thursday of the month, we've got Tim from They Make It Like That. We'll be back on the 13th for myself. The 20th, Eminem Rails, and the 27th of July, we'll do a Keeping Track and GVO After Dark. And of course, every Sunday we do the brunch, the Sunday brunch kit builds, which usually start off at about noon. Mark, did you want to touch on this past Sunday?
Yeah, so last Sunday we started building my parents' house, also known as Bub's Bougie Bungalow, from Brian, his Etsy store, Iron Horse Hobbies. He has a bunch of kits on there, different scales, and yeah, we started building my parents' house, and it went fairly well. It's a nice kit. You, Mike, and I did some other work, so all my pieces are painted, so we'll get that going. Not this Sunday coming up, but the next Sunday, hopefully. July 9th. We'll finish up those houses.
So we're gonna. Originally, we had planned to do part 2 this Sunday, but Mike has a baseball. I think he's going to a Jays game, so he'll be out of his town, anyways. And I'm still gonna do a Sunday brunch build, but I'm not gonna work on the kit. I'm gonna work on some other stuff. And you said the 9th, right? The 9th we'll do part 2 and continue that build. It's looking good so far, so you definitely don't want to miss that. And of course, every Monday, James and Mike, Trackside Mike and Dundas Junction Model Railroad, every Monday at 7 p.m. You want to catch them and all their shenanigans, all their antics. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, Mark, but Mike sent me a package. There's stuff in there for you. Also, I have an envelope for Dave, and also Perry and Bubs as well. I got to pass those on. And I got some stickers that I was able to put onto the layout today. So thank you, Mike, for sending those out our way. And we really appreciate you. The keeping track that happened just before the show. Like I said, it's been a busy month. There was the Rapido barbecue at the beginning of the month. There was also the Arm Prior Train Show where we got to hang out, the three of us. Dave, any highlights from the day?
I mean, other than you guys, nah. It was a good. It's getting bigger. I think I skipped last year or maybe last 2 years. And I was really happy to see that it seems to be growing. The club layout was there. It's looking great. Bubs, Perry were there. That was awesome. Got to see them, and yeah, no, I was just happy to be there. It was my first train show, I think, since the pandemic started. So this is
Yeah.
a big deal for me. Didn't buy
Definitely
anything
good
though.
to see that. Yeah, things were like crazy expensive, more so than normal. Maybe it's because I'm used to shopping at OVR where the prices are decent. But yeah, when you go somewhere else like a show and it's
Decent.
like decent, it's nice. But yeah, like you go to a show and then they want like $170 for like a passenger card. I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. So, it happens. There's a lot of uh, price gouging for sure. But, as long as you're aware of that stuff, then you know what to look for, right? Mark, did you end up buying anything?
I did not. No.
Is it because your wife is sitting there?
No. Before I used to buy stuff just to buy stuff so I could show on a video or a live stream and hey, look what I bought. But now I'm trying to buy stuff just that I need or I really, really, really want, not just buying stuff for the sake of buying stuff. Nothing caught my eye.
It's true. It's true. It's very hit and miss when it comes to things like that. But
Yeah.
even with the layouts, I was saying to you guys, like some of the layouts that I saw, and it might just be because of the area that we're in, it's a lot of the same layouts that you're going to see over
Yeah.
and over and over again. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
And some of those I remember seeing like 8 or 9 years ago when the Ottawa show still happened, and it was at what college was it? Was it at Algonquin? Where was that?
Yeah,
Was it
I
Algonquin?
think that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one I went to that like re-sparked getting into the hobby for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nuts, but it was still a good time. Obviously, the Ottawa Ho Track had a setup there. We saw a number of guys that we know, Bubs, Perry, and just being able to hang out with everybody that day, it was really fun. So that definitely the highlight. Now with that, of course, went to the Rapido retailer barbecue where they did a couple of announcements as well. I don't know if you guys caught it, but they're doing more of the bi-levels, the 3 coach sets, which is basically 2 coach in a cab or a single car that's unnumbered. A bunch of different road names, including the Caltrain, Coaster, Frontrunner, Go Transit, and 2 different schemes, and Rail Runner. Also, a return of the GMD one. Mark, you missed out on the first GMD one, right?
I know you really want me to get one, but I don't know.
You're very on the fence still, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you have to wait and see, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're nice, but
They are nice.
Yeah.
Bubs actually lent me his, and they were from the first run, and I had fun with them. But of course, a lot of things change in I don't know how long it's been.
Yeah.
At least 6 years since they did those. So
Really?
yeah,
Oh.
yeah. It's been quite a while. And of course, as well, they did announce some NSC 5304 cubic foot combi door box cars. The lumber service ones. So they were the brown CN ones with the green door, or you can get the single run of the gray, which was a test paint scheme, which they did on a couple of different cars. It's a one-off, but it's a really nice looking car with the CN North American logo on it. So kind of interested in those. I don't know if Dave would be interested in the NSC 3294 cubic foot CP mech reefer. So it's like a refrigerated box car.
Maybe. What size is it? Sorry.
It's a 3294 cubic foot. So it looks like it's might be a 40-foot box car,
Yeah, that
maybe
would work.
maybe a little bit bigger. But they have it so that you can add a sound decoder to it, and it actually makes the refrigerator sounds.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
actually kind of a cool idea.
It's neat. It's not the first time. I think it was, I want to say, either Broadway Limited or,
Oh
someone's gonna know.
yeah.
Those the big white ones. They're perfect for like if you do graffiti. You got the big white billboard, but yeah, it's a refrigerated box car more or less. And I think it was Bachman, either Bachman or someone else. They did them, and they sound okay, but it's like, do you really have that on all the time? I don't know, but it's a nice touch. It's a nice touch for sure. But yeah, and I got to show some of those highlights in keeping track. If you guys didn't get to see, day trip to Toronto, stopping in a couple of spots there where I like to catch some GO trains, and then going to Markham. We've been to the Rapido, I think the head office there a few times over the span of last several years. So, but yeah, being able to see the D10 actually moving with sound and whatnot, it's an awesome locomotive, and I can't wait for that to start production. I'm not sure if it has already yet or not, but yeah, it sounds great, looks great. So hopefully all you CP guys are quite happy with it.
I regret killing off my pre-order for that, but at the same time, I don't, because I don't know if it's gonna work and handle like my layout. But still, it'd be
It's tough with the steam locomotives, but you said yours is a Bachman, right? The one that you have.
It's a Proto 2000.
Proto. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back from I think
And
Life
it
like.
seems to
Yeah, it's
handle
an
those
080.
curves already.
Yeah, it's an 080, and I had a Bachman, the 460, and it was fine too. But I just Rapido has a pretty bad reputation on this layout, so I think that should be your first steam locomotive, Chris, and then you can just bring it over and let me test it.
I'm kind of waiting for a CN steam locomotive, because I know no one's going to do an Ontario Northland steam. That's too much of an ask. That's a tall order, but CN is more likely. Here's hoping. But yeah, I definitely. I don't know anybody who's going to get it specifically. Bubs, you're a CP guy. I don't know if you're planning on getting the D10, but we got to try that on Dave's layout. See if we can coax him into a D10.
Oh man,
James is gonna buy one. James will buy two.
He needs one to run in each direction, right?
Exactly.
So I'm going to do the mini of the month. Mini of the month from Mini Prints, $29.99 US each month. That includes shipping. I usually get an animal, a seasonal mini, and a mystery mini. And if you do subscribe to that, you get 15% off at miniprints.com. And it ships on the 15th of every month. So you always check mid-month in your mailbox, and there's usually something there for you. Now this weekend, and if Bernard is still in the chat there, I don't know if it's all weekend or if it's just today. It might be all weekend though. So for the US guys, you get free shipping if you spend $50 or more with promo code MINIS. That's MINIS. And because Canada Day is Saturday, for Canadians, free shipping on $100 or more in Canadian, and use code BEAVER, BEAVER, and you get free shipping. So, also Wednesday, July the 5th, Bernard will be going live. He does a live the first Wednesday every month. So watch for that. Now these are great because they always send us, early releases, things that are not released on the website yet, but things that will be coming out. And I'm not sure if everyone's going to be getting a pin, but this is like a little mini lapel pin. Lapel?
Cute.
Okay, yeah. He says all weekend until the 4th. So free shipping until the 4th, as long as you use those promo codes. That's minis for American and beaver for Canadians. Okay, so always in the little plastic container. Always well packaged. Okay, so what do we have here? Okay, so I'll start with this one because this is the most obvious. I also know the character that is going to be standing here. So this is neat. This is perfect for any layout, especially if you've got even like a museum, a railroad museum on your layout. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of slightly put this together, half together. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this here is one of those old-fashioned pump cars. I guess it's a pump car, unless there's another name for it. The cars where you go like that and you're standing on, and whoop, there you go.
The dandy dance or something like that.
The Gandhi Dancer or something like that. I don't know
Yeah,
if it says here. It's it's a hand car, but it's trackside Mike. There's trackside Mike. I don't know if you can see him or not. He's very tiny, and then there's the car, and it's not glued together or anything yet, obviously, because it just came out of the package. But that's really cool. So if you are part of the Mini of the Months, then you get one of those. Then I've got a couple of people here. What are these people doing? So that's probably the special, or the secret, or mystery one. Yeah, the mystery one. So these are the people. Okay, so it looks like a person and a dog. And they're throwing a frisbee for the dog. You can kind of see the dog at the feet.
Cute.
That's perfect for work. That's really cool. And this person, they're either filming something or they're doing something. What's this person doing? Oh, it's Dr. Mini with his shrink ray gun. Okay, so I think that's Bernard. He was talking about how he's going to do a scan of himself. And he's got a little shrink ray gun. Cool. And then there's one more little package here. So these look like, okay, these are planters. Whoop. Oh, and I know what that is just by looking at it. So there's these nice planters. If you've got like a downtown section, you paint them up, and then you can put a little, like you can make them into flower pots and whatnot. Very cool. Or you can put them outside a house. Neat. And the last one that we've got here, a lot of you will recognize this, especially if you were ever one of those kids to be like, Mom, Dad, can I have a quarter or a nickel to ride the little car in front of the grocery store? So it's a little coin operated.
Sure. Ask Mom and Dad and not my wife.
Did Chris say a quarter? Ask for a quarter? Is that what he said?
Yeah, how old were you when that happened? It was like $1 by the time I was around.
Yeah, I'm sure it's about $5 now.
Yeah. Just swipe the credit card.
Yeah, exactly.
Just want to bring to light, Bernard in the chat said that on that pump cart there, the wheels move. So that's a cool feature.
Wheels move.
Yeah, the wheels move until
I
you paint them.
They do move, yes. And I noticed that the hand pump thing it goes up and down as well. I'm very like
Only
I
once.
don't want
though.
anything to break. Only once. That is so fun. That's awesome. Okay, so I got to safely put all this back. So so $29.99 US every month, and you get a little mystery package just like that. Don't forget promo code minis for free shipping in the US, $50 US or more, and then in Canada $100 or more, and use promo Beaver, and you get free shipping. So, all right. So, the real reason why we're here tonight. Mark's beard. It's getting out of
You
control,
like
man.
It's always like perfectly the same. He must have like a template that he just holds up and shaves, so it's always the same.
Oh yeah. Oh,
That
yeah.
or he's just
I'm
like a
thinking
vampire and
it's a
he's got
spray
us
on.
all fooled. It's a That's a thing. Can it
You ever
cover up
see
my
that
bald spot?
where it's like a cutout, right? You put it and then you spray it, and then you do the other side, and yeah, spray on.
You guys.
I gotta
man.
get on that. This is like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And I've been working really hard at it. I stare into the mirror and I'm just like, come on, Tare, grow.
I always imagine you were like the Play-Doh, right? Where you just put some Play-Doh and you push down and then it comes out.
Oh
You
yeah.
can just, chop it.
No, I keep
So,
putting Play-Doh in my mouth, but it doesn't. Well, I mean, it comes out, but not what you think.
Well, good night, everyone. That's a show.
We're all getting canceled. All right,
It's not toxic.
Breathe. Okay. I'm just checking the comments. Yes, yeah, that's me or Dr. Yes. I thought it looked like you. Just I've seen you in person, and you're much taller, so that's why I wasn't really, I couldn't really. But anyways, so yeah, so tonight's topic: building a layout. I know collectively we must have at least built a dozen layouts.
And Chris built 11 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a majority of that. Thank you.
Mark did half. I did half of one. Mark did half of one. Chris did the other 11.
Yeah.
But we all learn things when we build layouts, right? Things that we often talk about it. Things that we would do if we could do things differently or change later on down the road, or if we started over, what would it look like next? Well, I'm hoping that by sharing this, it'll give everybody at home an insight so that you don't end up making something that you regret and whatnot. And feel free to play along from home. If you've got a pen and paper, you can always say, well, I did this or I didn't do this. And, if you're making a mental note of it, that's cool too. So that's basically what this is for. This is for, if you're building a layout, if you're going to build a layout, plan ahead and avoid disaster or catastrophe. This is basically for any scale. So no matter if you're doing N or G or HO or whatever, this applies to everybody. And it doesn't matter if you're doing a 4x8 layout, if you're doing a module, if you're doing, whatever it is that Dave has. It applies. It applies. Picking on Dave. Hey, you chose.
I can't fight back, you guys. I can't. You've got a triple decker basement around the room. What am I supposed to say? It's not about the size; it's how you use it.
I mean, I guess. But if you come over, you can use it.
Don't
I don't
use
know.
15-inch
But anyway, so
curves.
yeah, let's
Okay. Yeah, so Tim's
on a
starting a layout.
3% grade. What?
Exactly.
It worked.
Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Dave says, okay, I'll do all the opposite.
I'm gonna speak to that later because it's a legit point. But we'll get started.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Tim's
Yeah.
starting a layout,
Okay.
James is starting a layout, and Heath's starting a layout, and Greg just joined. He's starting a layout too after two and a half years. So that's 4 right there.
Yes, he was sending me pictures. It looks good so far. It looks
nice.
Good. I get the pictures. I can tell you about it. He's not going to send you the pictures. He'll send me the pictures. I'm special.
Yeah, I wish Greg would actually post a video on YouTube.
Yeah, Greg.
That's
Come
the
on,
thing.
submit to peer pressure.
Yeah.
Do it. Just one little photo. Just, a little teaser.
So one of the big ones that we're going to start off with is the where and the when. Where is it located and what era? So when we speak to Dave about where's your layout and what era are you doing, what can you tell us?
So, due to my space limitations, I really didn't feel like I could do anything, prototypical. And I've never necessarily been that kind of recreate a place, and I think that's just because my skill with scenery just sucks. And I don't want anybody to compare it to, the real thing. So I just made up a story in a fake location, but the era, because I am a diehard fan of CP Rail with the multi-mark, I usually base it off mid to late 70s, but allowed myself some creative exceptions to just make life easier.
I just want to do a quick disclaimer, by the way. Your layout, your rules. At the end of the day,
yeah,
that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
These are merely suggestions that can help you in deciding. Well, I could go out and buy 5 different locomotives by 5 different manufacturers of 5 different road names, and then I got to try to collect whatever, and they might not even go together. So trying to narrow it down to a specific era and area will help you in whatever it is that you're modeling as well. Also, it's the difference of a wooden box car to a metal box car, when we're talking era. So again, it'll help you narrow in what you need to buy as opposed to I'll just buy everything. We can't all be James, but we'd like to be. And I love his go get 'em attitude. But for some of us who just want to buy specifics, this hopefully I will be able to point you guys in the right direction with that. But Mark, what about you when it comes to collecting? Do you have a specific era for your layout and an area that you are modeling?
Well, kind of like what Dave said. I mean, I understand the theory behind picking an era and sticking to that because it does. If you really do want to model something, technically model, then yes, have an era. That way, everything is prototypical for that era. But it limits you to buying other cool things like newer stuff, older stuff. So I try and model newer stuff, but I like to collect older stuff. I mean, if I want to buy a steam locomotive, then why not?
Yeah.
But I understand the theory behind it and the suggestion that, pick an era. And so I loosely base it on a modern era. That way the homes are more modern. There's modern cars, like vehicles. And the industries, I try to be a little more modern. But again, I have no problem throwing an old Santa Fe that doesn't run anymore, or a steam locomotive. And the boxcar, I don't care if it's out of circulation or not. But generally, I try to do modern.
I try to be strict when it comes to certain things like that because there's so much stuff. And I've said it in the past. There's so much cool stuff that's available, especially in this day and age where you can really get all this neat passenger stuff and all this cool new, SD40, SD50, SD60,
Yeah.
SD70, and then all the variants of every single one. There's so much cool stuff out there. But yeah, and I've even seen it where and I've talked to a gentleman who said I'm specifically doing it was like 1983. And I'm like, why 1983? Like that's such a weird year, and how do you find out exactly what locomotives were running at that time and what cars and car numbers? And just to be able to say, well, look, I'm very, straight and narrow here. I'm not going to run anything beyond that. That's a whole limitation that I would never be able to do. And I think that's why mine is loosely based off of the like mid 1980s to today, because it does expand it that much more, but it also doesn't put a limitation cap on, what I would prefer to run.
Yeah. I think too, like a disclaimer, there's people who have, model railroads to model them after places and to do the eras and do the locations, and then there's like the collecting side of it, and then there's like a third kind of just like a train set side of it where maybe it's just a basic loop and you don't care what goes around as long as something's going around, you get to watch it, you're doing something,
Yeah.
So there's that, but and then the collector, where like I feel like Mark, you're out of the three of us probably the one who is the most collector-ish, where you're just happy to buy what like looks cool to you, and if you tuck it away and you run it once in a while, like that's totally okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, and and then kind of going back to the era and the location, I think it does kind of come down to a lot of people seem to, when they were a kid, they lived in a certain area. I mean, that's why I do CP Multimark, right? I was a kid. I went and watched trains with my grandpa. He brought me to watch the trains, and it was a lot of CP rail. There was some CN, but he liked the CP rail, and I loved him. He loved me, and so like that, generationally, that I know, wholesome story, guys. Just don't cry. It's okay. but
No,
but
I want CP. Jeez.
but it's, so I think, and a lot of people will be like, oh, I worked on the railroad, or when I was a kid way back, or I lived here and I like that area, or you really like steam, well then that is going to bias your era to older stuff. So I think there's a lot of factors. I think it's important to just think about it, plan it, but maybe I mean, be as strict as you want, but I give yourself some slack to enjoy whatever works.
Yeah. What's that new term they came up with? The proto freelance or the free prototype or something? It's like a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Where everything is loosely based, but you're still using names and locations.
You should have some idea where you want to go with your railroad.
Yeah,
a little bit.
It helps define like the terrain. I'm not gonna say my layout's based in northern Canada and then have like a desert themed terrain.
Yeah.
So it does help. It helps to focus things, right? And when you're focused, you make easier progress. And then and something kind of too, and I hope I'm not getting too off track, but I noticed a lot of the bigger scales like G scale, you lose a lot of that because I just think that when you know, like a lot of the bigger scales or like O scale, you see, you know, you'll see like a UFO and stuff. Actually, that's for later. I want to keep that. That's for later. Um, it's
Putting that in
not.
my back
It's
pocket.
not as relevant. Yeah, yeah. Nobody steal that. Hold on. I want to come back to that. But
So that
anyways,
brings me to my next topic: UFOs on. No, I'm just joking. But actually, where'd it go? Anthony, I believe it was Anthony. I'm just gonna go back up here, like.
Yeah, Anthony wants to know why we build something and then tear it down.
Such great
Is that what you're
layouts.
going to address?
Just to tear down, yeah.
Yes.
For me, I'll answer for myself. Anthony, I see it as like Lego. Building a railroad is half the fun is running it. So if you build it, run it a little bit, tear it down, make a new one. Yes, it's very expensive, but I think part of it is building and trying new things. And because once you build your railroad and kind of happy with it, then you want to try new things. You want a new track plan, new wiring, new techniques.
Yeah, improve on what you've already.
I think it's how you grow.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like with every layout that I've done, I've taken something from each one and I've put it into what I have now.
Yeah.
Whether it be something of wiring, something of scenery. I used to run Code 100 Atlas track, and then now I'm Code 83 Pico. It's just these are all the little changes that you're going to make as you grow and you see something different. You want to try something different. I always used to use the shaker. Now I use static grass only, and it's fun. It just gives you more to work towards, and it changes up how you perceive the hobby as well. So
yeah,
next level. But the next thing that we want to touch on is with a layout, do your trains look like they're going from place to place?
Oh. So that's like, I was going to say the big thing if starting a layout is choosing a track plan. I know James, I think he went through a lot of track plans. He has one now. He's somewhat happy with that. Excuse me. I know Heath is playing around with some track plans as well. And we saw Tim do a live track plan with his. So I think it kind of goes along with what you said. Our trains going to and from round circles, that comes with a good track plan. And people reach out to professionals or to friends for ideas. I suggest, spend a good 5 to 15 years looking at YouTube videos and go over track plans. And you'll still pick the right one. I mean, as you guys know, you pick a track plan, you're like, it could be better. It could be better. And Anthony, that's why we tear it down, because it could be better. There's things we improve.
I mean, go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead, Nick. Go. You go.
Well, I was going to talk about, in some cases, like mine, for example, you just don't have the physical space to necessarily make it look like they're going somewhere big. And in my case, I wanted a loop because I like to have something constantly going, like I do in the background. But I also like to do a lot of switching. So to find something that worked, I could have made a switching layout in the exact same space I had, and it could have been, pretty detailed and pretty realistic, and kind of, cheesed it to probably make it look like they were actually going somewhere and doing things. But instead, I sacrificed some of that to me. I came up with a cheesy backstory and reasons, like it's an island, to justify the fact that I have it the way I have it. And like at the end of the day, it's kind of what you want, right? Like you can look at as many track plans on the internet, but if your space is slightly different, that's not going to work. When I built my first layout in the house, and it was going to be a 4x8 with an extension. I tried to base it off Rice Harbor, which was from one of the model railroader magazines. They built Rice Harbor, and it was a 5x8 with a hump basically coming out of one side. I think it was a 4x8 with and then the hump made it 5x8. And I modified it slightly, but I basically used the exact same track plan. But and I modified it enough to use accessible track, and that was great until I realized that that's just not necessarily what I wanted, and I ended up scrapping it before I got too far and making an around the room layout instead. Because I think something that people do is you grow, right? And as you do things, you realize, is this heading in a direction I like, or is this heading in a direction I don't like? And although it's expensive, and sorry, my cat's freaking out and playing with a toy in the background, so if you hear squeaking, um, um, kind of to expand on what Mark said. I mean, there's doing it out of necessity and doing it out of fun, tearing down your layout, but you know it's never too late to start over, and it sucks and it is expensive, and to rip apart something that works is hard, but ultimately to become happier with the result makes it worth it, even if that takes a while to get there. And yeah, it's funny, I asked friends, I reached out to professionals when I had my first layout in the room and eventually my second, and I ended up, doing it myself. And part of me likes that, part of me regrets that, and wish I would have maybe taken the advice. And it kind of comes back to like everybody's going to have an opinion, and everybody's going to think that their way is the best way. Um, and ultimately, all that matters is that you're happy with the result. Another
I
wholesome
try to,
moment.
I try to break it down when it comes to doing sections of the layout. I look at them like they're photographs, or like when you're rail fanning, right? You take a picture and you don't see beyond what the photo shows you, but you're creating the rest of that photo. So when you put all the pictures side by side, eventually you're gonna see a bigger picture. So it's gonna is Dave crying, or is he?
No, sorry. Mike said that he thought that the sound in the background was Little Bacon playing, which infers that he thinks he called my son Little Bacon, and I think that's just so funny. I'm gonna have to test that nickname with the wife. Anyways, I'm so sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. I didn't know if I struck a chord on your heartstrings there, or or what. But yeah. So like especially if you've got like a larger area, like especially even with yours there, Dave. Right, when you're looking at your industrial area, you're not looking at the whole section where the train's going to go. You're looking at, okay, well, this is where it's going to arrive, and it's going to do whatever, and then you're going to take a picture of the area that it's going to make its way to. It's just a matter of bringing both ends together and filling in that middle picture, just so that you're almost like bridging the gap between here and there. And that's what I tried to do with my layout, just to kind of fill in the extra parts. It helps, but generally you just want to make sure that you're having a to and a from, right?
Yeah.
A yard to an industry, or one industry to another industry, something like that.
Scenery
It's really tough though.
sectioning, right?
Yeah.
Like you do that, like, well, your levels do that, but you do that really really well, where you'll wrap around the peninsula, and then you'll have your backdrop kind of in the middle. So now you've got two sides that, although are physically a foot apart, or a couple of feet apart, uh look like completely different scenes. I really like how you've done that. You've done that with a bunch of your industries, and it turns out great. And they go through tunnels, and it breaks that, like, looking at the whole layout in one thing, or even like you said, like with mine, at least if you're focusing on an area, it does break it up, so you kind of get that it looks bigger than it feels.
And I hope you don't laugh at me with the next one here. It's just the way that it's worded. By the way, another public service announcement. I didn't make these up, so I'm not about to take the credit. This is from Model Railroad magazine. So I want to just put that out there. This is not me writing this stuff down saying it's me, but this is what I go through this checklist when I'm building a layout and when I'm creating something. These things help me to determine where to go. But when we talk about it, it makes sense, and sharing it helps too. Anyways, so the next one is the railroad goes beyond the basement. Now, you're not allowed to laugh at me because obviously most of my basement is the railroad. So,
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So, you know how Dave was talking about how there's a wall between my two scenes, and it's almost as if the wall isn't even there? Kind of creating that look that it's not a train layout in the basement. You're almost like you're visiting somewhere completely different. Anyway, that's how I perceive it. A certain ambiance, if you will. No thought?
I don't know if that's necessary. I think I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, actually. Sorry, it said the train goes beyond the basement, the
Yes.
track.
So
Just
At a
in
backdrop?
general, in general, the layout. It's kind of like, see, I'd compare it to a tattoo, but I don't think either of you have tattoos.
None
If
that I
you
can
take
show public.
certain, if you take certain tattoos and you just paste it right on you, it might not necessarily look like it's supposed to go there instead of something that just flows. If that makes sense.
So adding a backdrop.
I guess.
I mean, one could argue, like, okay, I'll use this again. You know, that loop, that 4x8 loop, that's just on some plywood, to run trains around, like that train set, or sorry, okay, let's use it. A lot of people set up their stuff on the rug, right on the floor, and they're happy with that, and that's fine. I think that's a way to do it. But using that against, say, Chris's layout, like, it's night and day. And when you look at that, when you look at the first example, yeah, you're in the house or you're in the basement. It's just you're watching a train. You're watching a model train, right? A toy train, a model train. Whereas when you start getting into the detail, like Chris's layout and like your layout, Mark, um, it fades from that toy slash model to being so immersed in the scenery, in the local, like in everything, that it's now like representing realism.
Mhm.
Maybe
Even-
that's more.
Even what Heath says there, going beyond the basement, is that your layout is part of a larger transportation network. So that's another way that you could perceive that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we all have a fair amount of track as well. Every track on your layout has a purpose. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, it's like what Dave was saying with the realism. It's just the difference between a fun layout on the rug or a 4x8 going in circles, or the transportation network or system, like he said. That's what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I look back at the layout I did in my parents' basement, and I had all the squiggly tracks, and it would just be like, oh, they were going to the same place, and like I wasn't even trying to justify it as like a passing siding or anything like that. But like I look back on like my track plan that I made for that, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, but mind you, again, I was happy, so it doesn't matter, to each their own. But um, it it like Mark said, like when you fade into the more realistic, type of thing, um, yeah, everything has a specific purpose, and you can't have an industry with a building in 5 inches of space. You can't have like a big grain silo hopper filler industry. um yeah.
Is that on the list, Chris? Is that one of the check marks? One of the points?
Yes. Yeah, it's an actual list. Yeah.
Huh.
I would make that part of the track plan, because I think if you have a good track plan, the
Yeah.
track plan has every track that's will be
Yep.
used.
I
as a
agree.
purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, unless, and I don't know of many people, and I don't know a lot of people, but when you're laying track and whatnot, it is possible to simulate where track used to be, and I think you're even doing something like that on yours, where you left the ties but you took up the rails,
Yeah.
that's fairly common as far as large scale layouts. You'll see stuff like that. But would you ever put an industry that has track going to it completely abandoned?
Personally, no, because that's a waste of space for me. I like switching way too much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if, like Chris, even if I had your amount of room where maybe an abandoned line would make sense, uh probably wouldn't. Now, mind you, that would be really cool for scene. Like, if you really enjoy scenery, that's like a good diorama, right? Like, or if you enjoy
Mm-hmm.
scenery, or if your thing is maybe less about operating the trains and more about photography, or taking videos and stuff like that. Again, that changes the focus, and that kind of thing starts to make a lot of sense. But personally,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. That wouldn't be something I would do.
Mm-hmm. Going back to right near the beginning when we had spoke about the where and the when. One of the items on the list here is make a list of the trains that you will run. Now, I'm not sure if this is based off of the fact that, okay, well, I am just going to do a commuter service or passenger service, or strictly do freight. Because early me would just be freight, or not freight, passenger, passenger, passenger. And then you meet Dave, and then it's like freight, freight, freight. So you get the best of both worlds. And again, this is one of those things where, depending on the person and the space and what they like, you'll know that with passenger, it does require a certain amount of space and curves and whatnot, that in order for it to really, really work for you. Even something like an auto rack, like if you're doing like an auto carrier industry, you need to have curves that will work for auto racks. So making a list of things that you feel that you'll be able to run, whether it be auto racks or passenger cars, all the way down to something small like a coal car or box cars. Dave, when you were planning yours, I know a lot of it was trial and error as far as
Yeah.
going up the incline, especially on that curve. Do you want to talk about that process? And
Yeah, that was a big thing, because I had built this modular layout for N scale, and when I came back to the winning team of HO, um, I I hate bench work. I hate dealing with wood. I'm no good. My wife is great with wood. I'll take care of everything else, but and as you know, Chris, because you came over and helped me. Um, but the thing is, when I switched to HO, the tightest curves were 15-inch, or like I think actually 14 and a half. I just say 15 as a catch-all, and I had to have 4% grades. And of course, you go on the websites. I went on Model Railroader forums, because I've got the account, because I'm subscribed as well. You go onto the forums, and people are like, "No, don't do it. No, no, that's and they're very against it, and it and it's hard. It's hard because I was really excited, and I really was motivated to come back to HO, but I just didn't have the space. This is the space I've got, and when I'm trying to plan, and you're looking for actual information that says what will go around a 15-inch radius curve, um, you hear people say all the Tycho stuff. I don't want to run Tycho stuff. That's a genre. People are cool with it. That's great. I'm not one of those dudes. Um, so like I basically was like, I'm gonna buy these two Bowser DS44 1000s and these three Walthers 40-foot box cars and some flex track and a couple of switches, and I'm gonna try it. Not a lot of stuff. I bought only enough to do. I actually bought enough to do just the main line with a couple of switches. And in my videos, like the update 1 and 2 and 3, you see I've got the 15-inch curve, and I'm running it just on DC, and I'm starting to go up the incline, and I'm testing every step of the way because I had to know if it was possible, because again, you reach out to these other people for advice, and for their expertise and their experience, and some people are very understanding, and some people will say, yeah, you know what, try it, and other people will not, and that's hard, especially if you're a beginner and you don't know better. Trying to get into the hobby when that's the case, you just don't necessarily have the whole basement that you can make a 3-tier layout. That doesn't mean that I can't still have one, you know and it's hard, but you can read a lot of books, you can read a lot of articles, you can go on the forums, you can talk to a lot of people. uh Ultimately, like, my advice is try it. Buy the you know because I thought, okay, if it doesn't work, I'll either sell everything as like basically new in box, or you can always try to refund it, or keep it, and eventually, when something, years down the line, or sell it to friends, or I could bring the locomotives over to your guys' house and run them. Like, there are alternative ways to handle the things, but ultimately, you know buying a low amount of things and trying it, you know, works. Like a turnout, you want to try a new turnout or a new brand. So buy the cheap, buy it, buy one, don't buy them all, buy one, see if it works.
Yeah, I
But
think there was a day where I brought over like a couple of different things just to see what would and what wouldn't
yes,
work on
and
there.
nothing worked. I think the ST9 was the only thing, and then it ended up not really working either.
Yeah, yeah,
And
GP9. Yeah,
what
the
I say,
Walther's one.
SD. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
My brother-in-law brought his SD9 over, an old Athearn Blue Box, and it actually it takes the curves.
really? Oh wow.
It's a 6 axle, but it works. He brought
That's
over anyways, but yeah, so yeah, that's kind of my point. You just got to try it and do what you can.
what about you, Mark? I mean, like, I get the feeling that you see it. If you like it, then you'll get it. If not, you just kind of keep going.
Yeah, I am. I'm seriously thinking of changing the layout a little bit so that I don't do passenger anymore, because I'll collect passenger and I'll, like Dave said, run at your place or at the club. But I'm thinking of, changing it up a little bit, new track plan, just focus on operations and freight and not worry about the 36-inch radius, and no duck lift, because it's starting to get all wonky. The track is lifting and stuff, and I don't know. Gotta pull the trigger soon. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. But I am thinking about it. But Yeah, the passenger trains, and it just goes around in a circle. There's no operations, and so that I'm strictly collecting, and I am starting to like operations. And right now, my layout's not too conducive to that good of operations. I don't think like an operation session could be better.
I think a big part of that is like you touched on earlier, Mark. Like building it's half the fun. The other half of the fun is what comes afterwards, and watching it go around the circle again. Some people that's good enough. That's what they want, and that's great. I'm partially there, but you know the other part is the operations and the social aspect of it, having people over and entertaining them, and that's a big part of it for a lot of people, including myself. I love having you guys over and doing that. So like I totally understand, and I support that. And if you need a hand, hit me up.
Thank you. I know like he's doing a point to point, and John 2618 has a point to point, and point to point means no like duck under or lift out, which would be great, but also means no run around, no loop. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's really it's a tough one because there's days where I'll come down here and I'll put a loco on the track, and just like Dave is doing there now, he has it running freely in the background. Maybe you just enjoy listening to the sounds. You don't want to touch it or anything like that. You'll follow it around. Maybe you'll take some pictures or whatever if it's a new locomotive, and you're just like, oh, I got to take a picture of this thing and post it to the gram. But there's also times where you're like, I want to take this set of cars over to here, switch some out, and then bring some back to the yard or whatever, or just run those around as well, do a loop and then come back. And it's easy to do a loop. It's harder, I find, to do a point to point and then commit to that point to point, knowing that you can't just walk away from it at any time.
Yep.
You can't just
Yep.
divert your attention for whatever else, And as a guy with kids, and I know Dave has a little one too, and Mark with your
little
dog.
bacon. Yep, little bacon.
Little bacon.
Little bacon.
Someone will come into the room, someone will call you, and all of a sudden your focus that was on that train that's going is now no longer on that train that's moving. And it adds, that level of risk that, a $300 locomotive to the floor just it's a tough call.
And Mark, I think something too, you got to think outside the box. Like mine's a loop, but mine doesn't necessarily look like a loop, right? Like there are ways you can cheese it that, with inclines and certain things. Now, inclines add risk, like you said, you're duck under, like it's a cause of problem, and maybe we will talk about this more later, but that's something I do want to talk after we get through the list of like causes of frustration on the layout, things that you would never do again, because I know I will never do a lift out gate myself again, because it just, you get it perfect and then just it's great for like 2 weeks and something moves and you're like
Yeah.
But some of us aren't young men anymore, so you can't duck under, Chris.
So hard.
And that's the funny thing. I'm glad you mentioned it, because I swore up and down when I built this layout here. I said no duck unders, no lift outs, which is fine because the only time you should really use a lift out is if your actual layout is mounted securely to the wall, where I've stated, and it's fact, my layout is not connected to the wall. It looks like it is. It looks like it probably should be, but it's not connected to the wall at all. So for me to still have that little give of movement, there's no way I can add a lift out, because it would become unaligned just for that simple reason. As far as duck unders go, I mean, I'm shorter than all y'all, so I don't really care. I only have to duck like a teeny bit to get under that thing.
Oh,
y'all
I'm
have
through.
to suffer a bit.
Well, I'm
you know.
through. Oh, I'm under. I didn't even have to crouch.
It's not like my old one where I literally had to get down on all fours and be like, oh,
Yes.
you know,
Look,
and then
technically, my basement's the duck under. I'm pretty sure Mark smoked his head coming down here last time and just decked himself. Because it is like it's just I'm 6 foot. If I wear shoes, I hit my head. If I don't wear shoes, my hair will brush against it, and that's fine. Like maybe that's why I'm going bald. It just keeps rubbing off the hairs on top. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm not questioning it. But like, yeah, poor Mark comes down, and you're just like, yeah. By the way, Mark, watch your slam. And you're just like, oh, sorry, man. Should have warned you.
the next one, and this might bring us back to something that we spoke about previously. Curves are large enough. Now, it leaves it a very loose saying. Curves are large enough. Curves are large enough for what? For auto racks. Curves are large enough for just passenger cars. What is the and this is kind of a continuation of make a list of what you're going to run. If I'm making a list of what I'm running, like full on right now, it's passenger cars. I don't necessarily have an auto rack facility, but the more auto racks I get, the more I'm really wishing I had one. But my
Fourth level.
curves are still large enough. Fourth level, yeah. Cut through this room. No, my wife would
Like you
literally
say
kill
that,
me.
like you're like, no. Like, oh, how do you? I think the mice ate through the wall. There's like this perfect hole right here.
It was like that when I got here.
Yeah, when we moved in, yeah.
But when you're making a list, of the things that you want to run, or that you're going to run, or that you aspire to run, you always want to make sure that your curves are large enough, right? You're never going to try to make it as small as possible.
I feel like this necessarily, like this goes back to the track plan though. Like, yes, you do need and they're hand in hand, so you kind of do have to go back and forth. This is not a linear list, right? But the space you have available can also dictate the curves.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. That's was like making the track plan itself has a checklist. I think when I was doing mine,
Yeah.
I said I want this, I want this. If there's room, I'll put this. We'll put this. I'd have to have this, and maybe this. And one thing was I want to have the biggest curves possible. That was like almost number one because I was going to run passenger cars. That was like number one. So I built my track plan around that parameter.
I can honestly say 29 inches is not terrible. Even with auto racks, you know that ugly hangover? And yes, I'm going to refer to it as an ugly hangover. Because when you're going around a curve and the car is long enough, you've got that inside thing where it's no longer over the center of your track.
Yeah.
It's a very ugly hangover. And with 29 inches as your curve, you don't get that ugly hangover. It's like a little bit, but not gross. So don't be afraid to try out different curves with different cars to see what they will, work on.
I could be mistaken, but I actually think I read somewhere in one of the model railroader magazines, like years and years and years ago, because they do that they ask questions, they answer the questions, right? The people mail in, and one of them was like a table of like the car length versus the curve radius for like realistic looking running. Because right, like a 40-foot will be fine. Even it looks not bad on mine, but I can't do like the 50s are too much. Like I can't do 50-foot box cars. The gondolas I kind of get away with, but versus what's an auto rack, 92 feet,
82.
82.
Sometimes, yeah, 82. I
and
think
like the
22.
passenger, they'd be just as long, if not. You know what I mean? So that scales, of course, but
Yeah. Oh, you know what I'm thinking of? Bulkhead, an 80-foot
Mm,
bulkhead.
mm,
It's like 92 for an auto rack. I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. But
Yes, you see, Russ just said about the O scale, and that's instantly what I thought about when you said that, Chris. Is like you see it in O scale all the time, to the point where their trucks and it goes back to like the Tyco days where the coupler is attached to the truck, and even sometimes the front rails, like guardrails and stuff, move with the truck as it turns, and it destroys that realism look, that
yeah.
prototypical look, and goes back to that like toy train look.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Um. See, even in your case, when you were looking at, what can I fit here, right? So each module, because they're like modules, right?
Yep.
There
Yep.
there's a 3x3, a 2x4. So when you have your 3x3, and this is why track planning for me, I do it very loose, and we often joke about me
The
drawing my
napkins.
on the napkin.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I couldn't. I had to get ahead of you on that. I had to. I couldn't help myself. I'm
no,
sorry. I
it's
could not keep that in.
if I'm guilty of anything, it's using the napkin to make my plans. But when I'm drawing out my plan, yeah, I draw it on scrap paper or the napkin, and then it's not even saying when I'm drawing this, I'm not saying, okay, this is a 36-inch radius. I'm saying, no, the square is going to be 3 feet by 3 feet. I'm going to come back later and see what I can get away with as far as the curve, and then see what works at that point. Can I go bigger? Can I go smaller? What can I get away with? And I did the exact same thing with my Helix. I said, okay, well, this is what I'd like to have. I build the platform, which was 6 foot by 6 foot. What fits inside? And then obviously, because it's a double main, you're going, if it's large enough, you can do a 2-inch track center, which still works for even longer cars like passenger and auto rack, doing that size that I have. So yeah, sometimes I'll start with the base of it and say, well, what can I fit? How large
Yeah.
in the space can I go? Or do I have to make it smaller and downsize
Yeah.
from there? So
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes working
Yeah.
like
And
that.
play with it. And you know what? If you're not satisfied, don't give up. There are many ways to get to the same result sometimes. And think, like I said, think outside the box. This is a
Mhm,
double dog bone. It doesn't look like a loop, but it's a loop. It uses
mhm,
the space really well. Like you can do some really cheeky things. And it's worth just doing. Download AnyRail, Scarm. Those are the two main ones I think now. I can't think of. Atlas had one, but that's Atlas. And just you put in your bench work there and just go ham, because then you'll know, right? And it'll be like, here's what I do is I take the sectional track and say, okay, like what I did for this is I took sectional track and I said, okay, here's 18-inch sectional track, doesn't fit. Okay, here's 15, that fits. And then when I'm designing my layout, I replace that with flex track, but you know, um, that will give you the standard to like, yeah, this is like exactly how it's gonna fit.
mhm.
Another thing too is, I don't know if you ever suffer from this, but I suffer from the grass is always greener. So when I come back from Dave's, I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm tearing this out. I'm building a railroad just for operations. That's it. I go to Chris's.
Yeah.
I'm coming back. I'm focused just on scenery. I go to the club, run on Bub's modules. I want to put in an S curve and like just a forest and the train going through that. That's why I refuse to go to trackside Mike's layout, because I'm gonna come back and I want to put a hole in the wall. It's like
You don't need to go there in order for him to push you to put a hole in the wall.
yeah. I suffer that big time. If I watch a YouTube video, like it's inspiring, and I just want to like, I want to start again. I want to do that. I want to do that.
See what y'all did? You inspired him.
Peer pressure.
Well, you said that,
It's
right? Like Dave
good
was a huge
though.
inspiration. Dave was the
Oh
first
yeah.
time I've actually operated trains.
I nagged on Chris ruthlessly. I didn't stop for a minute, and Chris, he's laughing because he knows it's true. I was just like, well, what about freight? Oh, I'm pretty sure O&R has some freight cars. Like, oh man, it'd be really sick. Hey, come over to my layout. Like, I'll check this out. You want to back this train to the siding, pick up some cars? Like, no, you drive it. And it was just, I did not let up for a second. Finally converted the guy, and I'm so happy that you're coming to the light. It's like me coming back to HO. It's just mwah, I just love it.
Well, my
Glad to see.
wallet thanks you. Now that I have all this freight now it's crazy. And you never know what you're gonna like until you try it out firsthand. Like certain things scare people, kind of like the whole switching of cars and reading car cards and stuff like that. But then once you dip your toe in, get your foot wet, and you're like, wow, this is another level. This brings so much more to the table here. I've got something else to plan for, to work with. It's not just running in circles anymore. It's not just running point to point or cutting cars and all this stuff. There's an actual system behind everything, and this is how the real railroad works. And holy moly, it's just, that's how it is. They make it like that. There, I had to do it just once. I'm just doing it once. Tim, you only get one. But it's when it comes to building a layout, there's so many aspects, and that's why it's important to make lists. I make lists for like everything. I have a shopping list of locos that are coming out. I've got a list of things that I need as far as things that have already come out that I just need this and this to complete that. Things that you see online, things that you are really hoping that manufacturers make at some point. There's a list for everything. The next one, and I know for you guys it's a lot easier, but I found a workaround for mine. So turnouts are in easy reach.
Was that a flex? Oh, you guys don't have this problem, but I figured it out. That sounds like a flex.
Well,
that sounds like
no.
that sounds like you just dunked on both of us, just annihilated us in one sentence. Both of us, like, our chat, back me up here. Did we just get dunked? Like,
no, there wasn't even like a roast or anything like
Chris.
that. No, it's only because your layouts are literally,
Stop talking. You're not making it any better.
No, it's because
I know. Okay, I it's right here. It took me 10 minutes to see your whole layout. It takes me 10 seconds to look at mine. Okay, I understand. You don't have to rub it in.
I mean, however, with your old layout in the other room, when it was in the other room, you still had the very easy flick a switch, tortoise, there you go, boom, done. So no matter where your track is, if it's not in arm's reach, you're putting a switch machine. And I think that is the best thing that anybody could ever do. It makes sense, right? If you can't physically get to it, if you've got trees and other scenery objects that you don't want to knock over, put a little switch on the fascia. Plan for these things.
And disclaimer, it doesn't have to be an electric switch machine. There are plenty of hand throws even at a distance that you can set up. Mm-hmm. But I 100% agree. I like Pico turnouts because they have the springs installed. Mm-hmm. That is huge as well, right? That's huge. Like I just use my hands, and now I do have the two tortoises for the reversing loops, but that's for specific reasoning. But with my old layout, I used Atlas, and I think I had a Walthers, and when I tried to do the Rice Harbor one, I had a couple Shinoharas, and I had to put the caboose hand throws, and they were nice. Like, I'm not knocking them, but you know, that's something too. Yeah, definitely. You got to do something. I agree with Chris. You 100% have to do something. If you got a 4x8 and you think that you're gonna lean over and flick that turnout on the other side without your gut destroying the city of like Memphis or whatever you're modeling, Gutzilla just flattening the city, like. Ask me how I know. No, I'm just kidding. but
What's
you know what?
what's the cutoff for that?
What?
What is your cutoff for that? 3 feet deep or 2 feet deep? Anything beyond 3 feet?
I go with 2 feet. I go with 2 feet. 2 feet's good.
So
I'm
if
6
your
foot.
switch is at the back of 2 feet.
Yeah. Like, this is a 2x3 module, right? Right here. Like, I can touch the wall comfortably and flick these switches are at the end. No problems. 3 feet, right? I can't. There's no way. I'd have to get on a step ladder or something like that. It's just not happening. So 2 feet, again, everybody's different, but I'm 6 foot. 2 feet is my limit. Because even if it's 2.5 feet, and maybe I can like get a finger on it, like, again, what is my arm destroying or knocking over as I'm getting there?
And the height of the layout also plays into that as well.
Yes,
The higher it is.
that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, you're right.
Mark
Man,
looks like he wants to
burned.
say something.
Yeah, I was thinking. I did not plan for that reach because I put some fence along the border of my layout, and it constantly gets ripped up because Gutzilla. I lean over and I forget it's there, and then
Yeah,
knock down trees and wreck the fence, like knock over a car too.
I will admit, looking back, I remember my reasoning, and I've still standed by not having electric, turnout control. But as you guys know, like, even as of a couple of months ago, I reconsidered again, and it's too much work. Let's face it. I don't even have scenery in a lot of places. I have track, I have cork, and I have plywood, and it's painted. But my track work is sick. I'm knocking on wood right now, right? Like, this has been, oh god, where is it? Oh, there it is. It's still going. Yeah, so it's been going this whole time. My track work is good. I don't have track problems, and the idea of drilling, like, ripping up the track, everything's soldered, so like I gotta now unsolder everything. It's painted, so like I gotta strip the paint, I gotta unsolder it, I gotta rip up the turnout, I gotta drill a hole, I gotta mount a tortoise or whatever switch machine. In this case, I got no room. I can't do anything in here because there's the second level right here. So there's no way. I'd have to remotely mount the tortoise and get all of the. It's not worth it. So like, now that I've gone too far, it's harder to come back. So that's something you definitely need to plan for in some capacity. And like, yeah, it sucks. You mean you'd have to shell out some money. But as Russ mentioned, like, I didn't mind the hand throws, but if I was going to do it, I'd go tortoises all the way again with fascia switches.
Both Mark and I, we've had our struggles with the Walthers ones, but I still recommend them. And I don't know, Mark, what's your thought on the Walthers ones?
Oh yeah, no problem with them, really. I mean,
oh yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
I know some people had misfortune with some of them, but yeah, I can't compare them. Unfortunately, I never used tortoise before, so I don't know what they're like compared to those. But
well, you used the ones on my layout, but operationally, I guess you never installed them.
Yeah, I never installed them.
Yeah, kind of a pain. They come with a paper to mount, and You try, but you're under the layout. There's wires everywhere. It's like the hottest day of the year. The AC's out. You're trying to drill in. There's sawdust in your eye. You're trying to drill. The screw falls in. It falls right in your mouth. The tortoise falls out. And then you get it all mounted. You're like, great. You go up, and the throw bar isn't even through the hole right. And you're like, it's a 2-person job. Honestly, I stand by that 2-person job.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
Really 2-person job.
Yeah.
Because you had
I've
Bubs help you
come
with a
over
lot.
just to help
Yeah.
me. But the funny thing is, like, you remember that time that I came over and then we had to fix one of your switch machines, and we're both there like this, and we're under the layout, and I'm holding it in place, and you're trying to, oh man. But like, that was my first experience with a tortoise, and I thank Walters every single day whenever I have to install one of those. It's way easier.
To be fair with the tortoises, if you cut a big enough hole and you mock everything up, and then you take the turnout out and you mount it, and then you drop the turnout in and clip the wire. Like, one of the best things I ever did was buying my own piano wire and bending it so that I could have enough where it was couple inches above the turnout, and then when everything worked and everything, because then you just drop it on, or you fish it through and it's way easier, then you just snip it to length. Like, that's, again, huge recommendation. But when you're a beginner, you don't know that.
No. Here's something along the same lines. Places where you uncouple cars are easy to get to.
So, Mark, do you want to start? I saw you unmuted. Go ahead.
No, I just remember watching a video about someone did that years ago. He posted a video and said, I never thought about that until he posted it, and he said, when you're putting up your scenery, like your structures and stuff, make sure you have pathways for your hand to go through so you can uncouple things. It's like, wow, I never thought about that. It's so true.
Yeah. So 2 things I kind of want to mention is, yes, the scenery thing. Those uncoupling the KD magnets that sit over the track. I know Rapido has the electric ones, right? There's a couple of different things. I tried the magnet on the track. I didn't feel like those worked super good, consistent enough, and the whiskers always hit them, and what a pain. But that being said, I use those. I just had the name of them. The Rix tools, right? The little white Rix tools, and I mean, they're fantastic. I have 2 of them. Everybody comes over and is like, "How do I use them? What happens?" But once you figure it out, but different, again, you kind of do need to be wary of where your hand is, and it's hard, right? Especially in some of the industries where you've got multiple tracks and you're dropping off, a couple tracks in. It's hard to get there. But a second point, not only that, is straight track where you're uncoupling cars and coupling cars. You can't couple and uncouple on curves. It just, it's not going to work. And that's something that nobody really talks about. And that sucks, because I had to redo the whole lower industry set because of that, and put in a couple of little straight sections, just like 2-3 inches of straight, where you drop it and it's straight enough that you can recouple it. But yeah, nobody talks about that part. I feel like
I'm actually starting a support group for guys who hate trying to uncouple tanker cars, because, as you know, tanker cars, they have a specialty kind of knuckle, and most of the companies that make them today, they simulate that, and they are the worst car to try to uncouple. Like, you can't just, no, you gotta, and then the car is completely off. You can't do anything about it. I don't know if it's just me, but we'll find out when that support group goes live. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's the worst. And I don't have one of those things that you have there. I always forget about it. It's on my mind, but it's never in my list, So
yeah,
I tried it though. It somewhat works.
Well, I tell everybody you got to get the magnets right, because there's a lip, the white, there's magnets, and then there's the white part, and the magnets go over the track, and you need to get them all the way down to the track, and then you wiggle it back and forth, like, you know, like that. And if that doesn't work, you flip it and then you wiggle it again. But if you don't get the magnets all the way down to the rails, it won't get the whiskers.
Hmm.
I'm pretty reliable with them, but I mean, it's my layout, so I mean, I use them all the time. But the
Do you remember what gauge piano wire you used?
no, for the tortoise,
Yeah, they were asking in the chat there.
I ooh ooh can I ooh,
You make a great video though. Your wiring videos for that.
you know what? I think it's in my tortoise video. I do the how to set up a tortoise and everything. The HO how to. It might be in there. Otherwise, I'll see if I can sign into eBay. But I'm pretty sure somebody asked me that and I couldn't find it.
If you can't, you can't. No worries. But yeah, they were just asking.
No,
So.
it only goes back to 2020, so I cannot find that. That was many years ago.
Mark, do you have that issue with the uncoupling cars? You're a big tank car guy. I don't know if you've ever had that or experienced something similar. If you want to join the group, or
Yeah, they are. I will join that group. They are a pain in the butt to uncouple.
compared to, like, let's say a box car, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, I literally just skipped to a random part and found it. Hold on.
And like Atherin's couplers on the tank cars. Oh, frustrating.
Yeah, it's the same with the Walthers, and it's the same with the Rapido.
Yeah.
You know, I've had the Atherin ones too in the past, and they're nice couplers. How they simulate the tanker car couplers, but yeah, the model ones are they're unnecessarily difficult to get apart. I don't know if it's the same for N scale either, but HO ones are ridiculous. So
yeah,
it's not in that video. Whoever made the video clearly was an amateur and didn't mention it. What a guy. I know I had to use a jeweler drill to drill out the hole a little bit. It wasn't too much. I found it on forums. It's probably out there somewhere. Because I didn't just loosey goosey just go and buy piano wire. I was just like, oh, what size? Unfortunately.
The next one, and I think this is something as far as realism goes, or it adds realism. Avoid laying track parallel to the benchwork edge.
I see. Yeah, it. I'm a big fan of watching the Model Railroader How to Build Your First Layout, where they build. Oh man. Oh, I literally watched it not like 3 weeks ago, but of course I'm like.
Got the ponytail?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's all I watch it every couple of months. I like it's so chill and relaxing. The music's nice and like easy listening. Man, hold on, it can't be too far. Anyway, it's the Madison Central is what they build, and it's a 4x8. They use Cato track, Unitrack. But yeah, that's what they mention, and honestly, it does break up the way you view it. If it's parallel, you're seeing the side, but if it's at an angle, you see a little bit more, right? Problem with that is space, and sometimes it just looks kind of goofy, right? If you're all like, I mean, I know that's how real track works, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, I think at one point, especially for longer sections, like if you have a yard, unless your whole yard is on a curve and you're doing like a curved yard or curved staging, you're going to take the longest, straightest part of your layout and most likely make that your yard. And it's going to most likely run parallel, which is fine. No one's going to critique you on it because, again, your layout, your rules. But for sections like with sidings, or even if you have a branch line and it's just running along the front of the layout or closest to the front, if you put it so that it's weaving, or that S curve that Mark was talking about that he wanted, it takes away that unrealisticness of it just running along the edge. But it's something to be mindful about. Not necessarily a rule, but it does add realism when you're not looking directly at the edge and then the train is running along the edge. So, as far as height goes, I think height of the layout is, I mean, it's based off of the person who will be using it the most and how tall they are, and also how you want to view the layout, right? Do you want to view it as a bird's eye view? Like when we watch SMT, he's not an overly tall guy. I think he's probably about the same height as me, maybe a little bit taller. And he looks down at his layout. It looks like it's up on, cinder blocks. That's how low to the ground it looks. Probably not, but it looks very low to the ground.
Yeah.
And then, you compare that to, let's say, because Mark is fairly tall, and how high would you say yours is off the ground?
Mine, I just measured it. I think it's 50 inches. What did I say, James? I just measured the other day. 50 inches.
Yeah. Yeah, it was during my live stream.
Yeah.
What was mine? Mine's 40 something. Well, depending on which, because I've got grades, right? So that changes it too. Because if you're going to have inclines, you have to decide what a happy medium is, because obviously this side is higher than that side and down there. So,
yeah,
that changes things too.
And my reason was the wood came in 8 feet length, so I just cut it in half. So all my legs are 4 feet. That was it. It was more of a price decision, economical decision, I should say.
Yeah, one of those things where, depending on the space as well, like if you do plan on going, multiple heights, how low do you want your lowest to be, and how high do you want your tallest? Do you want to be looking right at it, or do you want to somewhat have what I feel like, Dave, your height, like the height of your layout is really nice, because it's like you're not really, you're not looking up at it, you're not looking down at it, you're just kind of.
Yeah, I designed mine because I wanted to operate, so I needed it comfortable enough that I could operate and decouple and all sorts of that stuff, but I also wanted to be able to sit or stand in it. But I like to sit. I have a stool, so I like to sit and watch, and that takes into consideration. Now, Chris, with you've got 3 levels. Did you start with the middle and then
No, I started with the bottom, and then once I found a good height for the bottom, I went 15 inches up each level, adding the thickness of each module to it without going beyond the height. So they're all equal sizes, but because the ground elevations are different, they'll either, at some points of the layout, they'll look like, well, this one's bigger, this one's smaller. But I really wanted the look of a shadow box, almost, if that makes sense, where you've got like almost like a picture frame, and then when you look into it, the scene is your picture. So I try to make them roughly about the same, but it's very hard, especially when the ground elevations are going like this the entire time. Yeah, they're about 15 inches apart is the answer to your question.
Actually, my question was, where did you start, not how.
Oh.
But that's okay. You don't listen.
It started with the napkin. With the napkin.
It's
That's
like
where I
it's
started.
like
Started with the
you're
napkin.
me and I'm my wife.
Yeah. Well, either way. Yeah, look, I started from the bottom. Now I'm at the top. I don't know.
Oh.
Just in the layout area. Well, working wise. But yeah. Is there? Well, yeah. Okay. This would apply to Dave, but it won't apply to Mark. Sorry, Mark. Is there
Sorry, Mark.
good clearance of height for track to cross over?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big thing. My my level here, I've got this I think I stole it from my wife because it's for she knits and has to be oh, how big is your sleeve gonna be? But I yoink. It's
Yes,
approximately. Oh, is that centimeters? Yeah. So it's 11 centimeters. It's 4.5 inches from the bottom of the plywood at this top level to the top of the plywood. So take into consideration the cork and the rail. I use code 100. And you get probably 4 inches of clearance. What's I think what's a normal box car. I think I looked at the highest. It was one of my locomotives, but how do you work this? Hold on. We're
the
talking
thing that a lot of people won't be able to see with Dave's layout is that he has 3 levels there. You can't tell, but he actually does have 3 levels.
Technically, I have 4.
4.
Yeah, because it's the top. It goes down to the yard, which is 2. Goes down to the lower industry set, which is 3. Goes through the tunnel and down to the hidden reversing loop, which is 4.
Oh, that's right. It does go down again. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind. I retract. Yeah. Look at this guy with his 4-level layout coming all up in here, being all look, I can read centimeters. That's it. It's inches, bro. We're in Canada. Anyways, so he's got the 4 levels there. You can't really tell, but yeah.
But that's why I had to use 4% grades. So again, another don't recommend it, it'll never work. But yeah, with the space I had, I didn't want to give up too much of my main line because I knew I wanted the yard and I knew I wanted to run around with the yard, which means I need a switch at each end, right? Because I have a switch as soon as it gets off the curved incline on this end, and I've got a switch once it gets off the curved incline at this end. So I was pretty much strapped of how what do I want to do, and it ended up working out. I've got this big sweeping curve here, and that really added a lot of height, which was nice. But yeah, it worked good. I've never had any problems, mind you. Auto racks and all that stuff I don't run, so that would change. But I think I looked up the scale, what's the tallest train car, or what's the tallest this or that I'm pretty sure that's what I did. Actually, I looked up the tallest real life train car, and then I scaled that down to HO, and then I looked at that and I was like, okay, what's actually a normal box car, because I'm never gonna have this weirdness.
Yeah, I think
and
that
then
there's just
sorry.
a few. Oh, I was gonna say that there's also you've got your bridge there, because there's a bridge that goes over your track.
Yep.
You just, I mean, they do the math for you, really, right? And you just have to place it and make sure that it's raised up enough, right?
Yeah, except when you put it diagonal and not straight through, that changes, and yeah, you get creative.
And it's on a grade.
And it's on a grade. But Chris, you've got your overpasses and stuff, and you've got tunnels and everything as well. So I mean, you deal with that as well. I guess the tunnel portals kind of do the guessing work for you, right? But
more or less, but because I used the Woodland Scenics risers, they did most of the work.
yeah.
So when I'm doing my 2%, yeah, it's like a 16-foot stretch, but at the top, as soon as you get to the top of the riser, you're already above yourself.
Yeah.
So I never had to really worry. And then when you're at that height, yeah, you can use certain bridges and whatnot. You just got to make sure that the clearance under is okay. The only area on my layout where the clearance is not the greatest is the helix. And that's only because I have some screws that are kind of coming down a little bit through the wood, and I just haven't cut them. But as soon as I cut them, it'll be fine. But otherwise, yeah, like with double stacks, it would hit the top of the double stack, and it just risks it getting like scratched or stopping the whole train altogether. But I don't have double stacks. That's only when Bubs comes over. So
Yeah, I
yes,
think
run it
that's
as
what
a
I
single.
used as a double stack. I use that as my base.
Yeah, because they're typically, I find that they are even taller than like a double stack auto rack, I think I have one tri level as well, and they're still taller. I'm not sure how that is, but yeah, that is the case. So get yourself a double stack and let that be your height guide, or just use those NMRA gauge tools, just to because it really depends on the height of your rail as well. Where with code 100, you're going to have a much higher rail than code 83, so that changes everything. So it's just something that's good to be aware of. Figure out track elevation for all sections. And I think that when I look back at really old magazines that show layout examples, you'd see all these numbers going around, and I never knew what that was about until, well, not right this second, but until now when we're doing stuff with grades and all that, and it's basically just your elevation height. So when you're going from one transition to another, or you're going across a bridge, you got to make sure that if you're at an 8 here, you got to be at an 8 here, and you want to make sure your bridge lines up.
I
Right?
learned that from Roller
Or
Coaster
other
Tycoon. I got out
versions
of
of
a Cheerio box.
Yeah,
You think
me
I'm
too.
not even joking? I am 100% not joking there.
Yeah, old school corkscrew follies,
Yeah.
the expansion pack. Oh man, I love it. I love it. But yeah, like when it comes to making sure that your bridges that whether it's a car bridge or a train bridge, you always want to make sure that you've got that clearance. You want to make sure that your elevations are. I try to stick, like, I don't do like 3/4 of an inch. I try to stick to the smallest measurement, right? 4 inches, okay, great. 4 inches, it makes everything easier. I know that there's hardcore mathematicians that'll say, well, it's 3/8 and all that stuff. I try to keep everything as simple as possible, just to make sure everything lines up. So, but yeah, and in your case, grades work? In your case, grades did work.
Yeah.
But not always the case, right?
Well,
Like,
and
I don't want to trial and error with that, right?
yeah, and the thing is, like, I limit 4 cars per loco, mainly because now when I was running DC, so here's long story short, I tested it in DC and it struggled with 3 cars, and I thought, okay, that's where the 3 cars came from, because I had the 3 boxcars, right? And so I went, is it wheel slip? It didn't really seem like wheel slip, but I thought maybe it could be. So I basically was like, hey, it's gonna be 3 cars. Then when I got DCC, it it ran a little bit better, and I realized I could pull 4 cars. Now these Bowsers are pretty light, but I was like, oh, 4 cars, and it turns out that my Digitrax was set to N scale and not HO when I tested everything, so it wasn't giving it a lot of power. But it does struggle with like 5 or 6. Some of the cars it starts to struggle, and it will wheel slip, especially because I rarely clean my track, even though I've got one. But like that was something I had to take into consideration, and that's why I only have a 4 car per loco limit.
Mark, you also have grades on your layout.
I do.
How do you feel about those?
They're not very steep. So, and again, I did it for prototype because the train that runs by my parents' place is elevated, and I thought instead of making the houses lower, I would elevate the train, the track, excuse me. So that's why I did it. But yeah, it's just, the drag is that there's uncouplings and they're on top of the hill. You know, they roll down, but it's all right. It's not too bad. There's the odd wheel slip.
Mm-hmm. So this next one is perfect for anybody who does switching, has a yard and whatnot. My yard has a drill track. Have you guys heard of the term drill track before?
No.
It's more or less a track where you can do a runaround, like if you're, you know,
or runaround track.
Well,
I mean, I got
the
that.
correct term is
a drill
track. There's also something similar, which is referred to as a team track, but the team track isn't in the yard. The team track would be with an industry, but it more or less does the same thing where you're going to take your loco from pulling the stuff and you want to go around to then push it, and you want to be able to work that industry, right? But it's more or less just a spur. They are important, especially if you are doing a point to point. You're not going to be pushing your cars from one end to the other end of your layout, right? So it would be important to be able to go from the front to go around to the end and then start working on the cars, cutting them and then picking up, whatever cars need to go. And then you can just lead nose forward. I think that's why I like running 2 locomotives as well compared to just one, because then, you've got one facing this way and then one facing this way. And then that way you're just going from one end to the other, and then you can take off, right? So it helps when it comes to switching and whatnot. What about passing sidings?
100%. Got it. If you want to do ops of any kind or run multiple trains, and you've only got a single main line, you gotta have them. Have them.
And I actually did an experiment. It was probably about a month ago, where I had my passenger train running on a continuous loop while I was running freight that I was taking stuff from one area to another. And I would have to diverge the passenger train when I went into a siding. And the siding was like a team track that, I'd empty the cars and then take the cars into the industry or whatever. And then the passenger train could freely pass me while, I wouldn't have to take everything off just for it to go through. Very helpful in cases where, yes, you do have a larger layout. Would you see something like that on like a 4x8? Probably not. Unless you're running like, let's say, a double loop, then you could always say that one of the loops, if you cut to the inside loop, could probably be your team track.
I don't know if team track's the right word, Chris.
Is it not team track?
I thought the team track is like what I've got, where it's just it's like a ramp that a lot of industry, like local industries, use.
Yeah, it's like your industry lead.
Well, no, it's just an industry. But it's not a run. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a runaround track. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Could you make it a
You could.
runaround track?
I'm sure
'Cause,
you
like,
could, but I'm pretty sure a team track is just like. Yeah, he
I
says
wonder,
I'm correct.
I
So
wonder if the
like this
team track.
ramp that I've got here, where
Yeah,
it's just a ramp on a spur, that's a team track because it's made for like the local industries that don't have rail access to come
yeah,
and load their stuff. It doesn't
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's a runaround. I guess it probably could be a runaround, but it doesn't mean it is.
Mhm. See, it's different for. I think it could be different for you because right where your industry is, your locomotive is literally turning around. So I don't know if that would
No,
like. I'm not saying it's cheating, but like if you're doing it as a point to point, how would your locomotive get out of there? Right? It would still need
you would need a passing siding separately.
okay, and then the passing siding would allow
Yeah,
you to turn around.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
it's confusing.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. If you've got a point to point or even a directional layout, like you use passing sidings to loop around your train, change directions, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
What about scenic features between the edge of the layout and the track?
Uh, I mean, I never really thought of it too much. You do the best you can, but you don't want too much because you're gonna flatten it with a wrist or a gut, as we talked about.
Yeah, because I've seen it where like a lot of people will put a building right on the front edge. Do you like that? Like, is that a
I mean,
thing
if it's
that?
an area that you're not gonna like have to access, then yeah, it definitely adds a focal point, and that's really nice. But if at all you've got to get back there, like it's just a real pain, I would think.
Mhm. Yeah, I would think if it's not like a high traffic area,
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
be
yeah.
would
That
be
yeah.
better. But I don't know. I've dabbled with that in the past, and I like the idea of it more than actually doing it.
Hmm.
Because then you got to add full detail to the inside of the building, which is not a problem, but it's like then it's I don't know. It just seems like more challenging, I guess, at that point. But what about at least one large industry with multiple switching spots?
Mm, I mean, I feel like you could get away with just a bunch of small industries too.
Mhm.
Having having a big industry with a bunch of switching spots is good if you have friends over, and then that one person can just stand there and operate that little section while others work somewhere else.
Mhm.
True. I mean, though you could argue I do the same thing, and I have multiple smaller industries.
Yeah, but you're just so confusing. It takes a long time to figure it out.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, I can take that criticism.
It's because you got
Honey,
to read the book,
Mark is
Mark.
banned from my layout. Sorry, continue.
If you read the book, then you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
If you had a month to read through the instruction manual for his layout.
The 85-page PDF. Yeah, I got it.
Look, what did I say? There were only 54 steps. All right, that's it.
Only. Uh, as far as industries go, like whether you have one or you have five, I think it has to make sense in a sense, right? Because you have your industry, and then you have to have the equipment for that industry. So if you do have an ethanol plant, yeah, you want to have the tanker cars, you want to have the hoppers for it. Paper mills, lots of box cars, other cars, wood chip cars and stuff like that. It's all part of making a list. So when you're making your lists for, what cars do I want? Okay, well, what industries interest me the most? You find out what type of cars they would normally run. If your main interest is an auto rack facility, then yes, obviously you're running auto racks and those big, what are they, like 80-foot box cars that take the auto parts, stuff like that. But then, yeah, you got to coincide that with the size of your curves. Will my curves work for this? Stuff like that. Bigger locomotives, because you need that extra power to be able to pull all these heavy cars. And then, can I work a 6-axle locomotive into this? It's got to all make sense. It's got to work. Again, I know we said it right at the beginning. Your layout, your rules, these are just, helpful tips to, get the gears going when it comes to building a layout. So, plan for highways, roads, and parking lots.
Yeah, I didn't do that last time. I had too much track, no place for industries, no place for roads, nothing. I've done pretty good on this one, and I like it a lot better. I think that I at the time thought more track equals better, because more track equals more trains. It's a train layout. But scenery adds to it, and you do need to plan for it. And although I didn't have any specific kits or anything in mind when I designed my track plan, I left enough space to adequately fill it with decently sized buildings and industries.
Mark, what about you?
I'm fading, man. It's 10 o'clock. I missed the last question.
He was sleeping with his eyes open.
I'm old.
I thought this wasn't a school night.
I can't sit that long
for
anymore.
Highways, roads, and parking lots.
Yeah, you should plan for it. Like Dave said, I didn't either, but I planned for roads and highways, but not the prototypical size, because I wanted more space for track other stuff, because a real HO scale roadway is too wide for my layout. So, but yeah, it's important to.
I think some of the most interesting things you can add to your layout would be a bridge and a tunnel. Every layout, I feel like, should have a bridge and a tunnel. But yeah, when it comes to roads and stuff, like I totally skipped out on a residential area, so I totally envy you and your row of houses that you have there, because yeah, it's one thing that I just never really took into consideration.
Well, again, it's what I want. I want a model. That's why I wanted a model.
Yeah.
So
but it looks good though.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I have a checklist. I want wide. I'm doing passenger train. I'm modeling my parents' house, so I want to do passenger train, need the wide curves, and a small residential strip. That was the for sure. I wanted a small yard. That was a for sure. So that's the checklist. I wanted at least one automated crossover, which I have.
I've got two more here, and it's funny that this one is worded the way it is, because it's near the end when it should be one of the first ones. And by the way, these are in no real order, by the way. Plan for backdrops and do it early on.
Rip. Oops.
This was not by the way, again, I didn't write this, so it's not like that would have been too perfect though if I was a.
Yeah, well, the problem with that is I would have loved that too, but then you really have to plan where everything's going to go, what scenery is going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about
And
what
We're
about
both
just
going to use-
generic?
yeah,
like-
I did white. I did blue Bristol board for on my other one, and that was fine.
Yeah.
Problem is, I
Yeah.
got pictures back there now. I don't want to. I got nowhere else to put those pictures. I don't want to. They're dead. I like them.
That's my problem too. I have all those things that Chris, I got from Chris, the framed
Yeah,
locomotive
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And to
But
me,
you've got that one scene there with the backdrop, and it looks really nice.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
it's a plan, but I'm in no hurry because I feel like to do it early. I'm kind of like, I don't think you do it early because I think, by the time you get to the point where you've got industries and you've got terrain, you're gonna figure out where you want things, where it's located, what kind of, and you need to pick a backdrop to
Yeah.
to reflect that. And honestly, I feel like I'm gonna change my mind a million times on the terrain and on the scenery. So the backdrop is gonna be a later thing when I finally decide all that.
I think it's easier to do it physically and like it's to install. I think it's a lot easier to do, but to get the right scenery or the right background, I think is a little tougher.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Last
And
one.
the last one, and this will be Dave's bread and butter here.
Oh boy.
Think through wiring and all electrical components.
Look. I'll be honest, okay? I love wiring, but I can't make it look good. I wish I could take the time and clean things up, and I just can't. I just maybe I think part of it is, every brand, every device, everything you get has like a different plug. And the easiest way is to snip the plug off and connect the wires to other wires. Because I don't want to make a converter. I use terminal blocks. Well, that's great, but I'll measure how much wire I need to like get to like one side to the other. I'll measure it like twice. I'll be like, okay, 6 feet. That's great. That should be nice and tight. I'll Velcro it up. And then it's just like, it's way too much. And I'm like, I've already I've already tinned, I've already done all the work. The ends are all tinned. I don't want to recut this. The soldering iron's already cool. So I just slap it on there. And then I'm kind of afraid to touch anything in a way. I mean, I
Yeah.
do, but like,
I'm the same
I'm
way.
kind of afraid, like my signals. I dropped something under the layout and it broke one of the wires, and like that's like a hair, like that's like soldering a hair, and I'm like, and I did it, but like, sweet lord, like I don't want to touch it. So like, unfortunately, like in hindsight, if I were to do it all over again, I would definitely take the time. People are really talented organizing it and planning it out. I'm like, I didn't expect to have as much as I have. I thought this was going to be a really simple layout.
Yeah.
Initially I was going to use an elastic band for reversing loops. So I didn't plan for tortoises. I didn't plan for circuit breaking because it wasn't this big. So like, some people are really great. I've seen some really nice stuff out there, but like, I think a fact for all of these, and I'll let you guys talk in a second because I really just stole the ball on this one. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, we're still here. We're still here.
But every item on this list is great. It's a good starting point, but something that I think we can all relate to is you change your mind. The layout evolves. You can plan to a T everything you want to do, and then when you do it, you can print out your track plan in a 1-to-1 scale and start laying track, and then you're going to be like, you know what? I'm going to move this curve here. I'm going to move this turn up out, or this and that, and things change. And when things change, it interrupts what happens next, right? You change the way this track comes in. Well, now there's not enough room for a parking lot. So now maybe you get a different building, but that changes the way the whole industry works. So now, that has to change another industry, which then, it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, plan this, check this, do that. And I think it is a great starting point, and it makes you get into that mindset. But honestly, I'm coming up on 3 years on this layout, and although it still resembles the original track plan of the double dog bone, this looks nothing like I originally planned. Nothing. And that's totally cool. And I like that. And I'm excited about that, you know? But like, yeah, sorry, I didn't plan for all these electronics because I didn't know I was going to have that, you know? Part of it too is I'm kind of stupid. And instead of just buying like that just plug lighting kit, I'm like, I'll make my own. And that's like the messiest, the eyesore, like the ugliest thing you've ever seen. But it works. But like, still, you know.
I like your impression of yourself. Sorry.
Nailed it.
No, and I agree with you because like one of the first areas of track that I laid was my yard on the bottom, and I just
Yes.
recently went through a renovation of that
Yep.
because when all the track is down and whatnot, and you're able to start running trains and you're implementing all these things, you then have to make certain changes for whatever reason. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe you want it to work differently. So then you have to make these changes in order for almost like the layout to work for you, not you just trying to make it work. When it comes to wiring, though, at certain points, what are these cutoff points where, okay, well, is it too late to go back and do this? Or do I have to start over?
I think wiring is one of the easier things. Like, it sucks again to take like something that's working and break it to make it better. Like, nobody really wants to do that. But the fact is, if you've got feeders coming from your track, you can just cut those wires and reconnect them to whatever you want, and it's pretty uninvasive, right? Like, I'm not resoldering them to the track. I can just move my bus as much as I want. Same with all the lighting. Like, the wires are already going down. So although it sucks and it's really hard to work over your head and stuff, one of the things I've seen from, oh man, he's a UK railroader. Junction. Oh man, he's a nice dude. But he takes like his plywood off and like flips it over and works on all his electronics and then just puts it back on. And I'm like, damn, yeah, if I could work on it right side up, things would be so much better than working above my head, you know, like. But
Well, again, this is all just we wanted to go through a bunch of things here that I had found in Model Railroader, and this is more or less a checklist. And it's something that I go through and look at when I'm working on my layout. You guys can always refer back to that if you missed any. I read the question as it's, well, not really question, but statement as I found it in the magazine as well. Other than that, because we could really go on forever with this, but we are going to more or less pull the plug because we've already been going for at least 2 hours. So the only other thing that I wanted to mention, which I got to find it here in my book.
Everybody had enough Daveco. Pulling the plug on Daveco. I see how it is, Chris. No, it's fine. It's fine. Daveco's getting a lot of the spotlight. Go over here, go home. Doesn't want that. No. Let's kick him off. Banned from GVO After Dark for another couple of months.
It's
past Mark's bedtime. If that helps at all.
You guys can still go. I'll just log. I'll take myself out. You guys can still chat.
I'm hanging on by a thread too.
You guys aren't night owls? What's going on?
Not anymore. Dude, you have kids. Like, how do you do it?
Let's do GVO after dawn. What do you think?
After dawn.
I can do that. 4 hours.
Everything's gonna turn into like a brunch conversation, brunch build, and then brunch before dark. Yeah. Way before dark. The only other things I did want to mention, again, September 3rd, we're doing a trackside barbecue. If you're in the Ottawa area and you want to come hang out with some of the, and I'm going to use it very loosely, coolest people you'll ever meet, like Mark. He is actually the coolest guy I know. And
What?
Dave, if I don't know if you're coming or not. You're invited to come. You can come if you'd like. I want you
Not
to come.
after you admitting Mark was the coolest guy you know.
But he is.
That hurts. That hurts. I come into your house and you treat me like this.
Who invited this guy?
Anyways,
if you're in the Ottawa area and you want to stop by, make fun of Dave Co. and have some hot eats, cool treats, and Mark will treat you right when he takes you to Dairy Queen. That's September 3rd. Let me know. Let me know. That way I know how many burgers to make. And then, of course, Otter Valley, September 16th. They're having a manufacturer open house. Lots of great manufacturers are going to be there. I'll be there. I'm going to be giving away some stickers. I got new stickers in the mail recently, and I'm just going to show this. And these are going to be for the people who do show up. And it's a huge sticker. And I'm going to have these for you guys. I'll be handing these out. Compared to the other one, which was almost like a pog. So yeah, be there, be square. Other than that, do you guys have anything else for us tonight?
I'm good. Dave?
I'll jump in once.
until next time, enjoy your bacon.
Bye. Love you. Kiss, kiss. Oh my God.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Have a
Mark.
good
I love
night.
you too, Mark.
Yeah.
You guys have a great night. Thanks again.